Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
So there's a comedian named Michael Jr. And I say comedian loosely because it seems a lot of times his comedy moves into sort of message giving. So I like him because he brings humor and message. So he was telling a story of his daughter being born. And it's about 2 minutes after she's born, they put her over on the table and he's filming it and she's crying. And so he shows in his performance, he shows the video of her just on the table. Her name's Portland. And so as he's filming, he's like, Portland, it's okay, I'm right here, it's okay. And as soon as she hears his voice, she stops crying. It's really powerful to watch. And then about 7 minutes later, they've cleaned her up, and after all the cleaning, she starts screaming again. And again, Portland, it's okay, I'm right here, Portland. He has this really deep, resonant voice, Portland, I'm here. And she stops crying again, and he goes, Portland, I love you. And as soon as he said, I love you, she opened her eyes and looked at him. And his message was, you know, we can feel like we're going from conflict to conflict to conflict, or be full of fear. He said, but all we need to do is just stop and be still and listen, because the Father is always talking to us. The Father's always here, and he loves you. Isn't that a beautiful message? Happy Father's Day, guys. When I first watched, I've actually seen it a couple times, then Mike Tipton, hi Mike, sent that to me. And I just, for this week, and it's so beautiful. But it was interesting because I've spent 35 years really working on the Divine Mother. And it's been a long time since I've called God Father. And I'm like, oh, I can't say that out loud. You know, we're in this interesting month, too. It's Pride Month, it's LGBTQI Pride Month. June 19th was Juneteenth, the end of slavery. Well, some types of slavery. And then today's the solstice, and one could say that for those, so much of indigenous cultures were very feminine based, and so there's a lot of things where you say, well, that masculine energy, that patriarchy hurt people, like is through those religions that people have been rejected, through those religious beliefs that some people were considered less than human, through those patriarchal religions, nature religion was destroyed, and I had a spiritual experience of the Divine Mother back in 1993, so I was doing everything, and I didn't even want to go to neutral, because I'm like, I got to just embrace the feminine. So all my books, anything that refers to God, I always switch to she. Most New Thought books go to he, and I've never been against he. I had a great dad, and my first experience was really a masculine energy, but for my own embracing of my own gender, been doing she for a long time. But what's interesting to me is that I would say in the 26 years that I've been a minister, the amount of women that I know who have wonderful relationships with their dad, or have wonderful moments and experiences with their dad. I'm like, so we've taken a whole gender and said, well, they're evil. And I don't think anyone says that, but every time we say patriarchy, sort of through seething teeth, there's a little bit of anger there, rightfully so, but we have to heal, and that's what love does. Because the truth is, and I know you all know this, I'm preaching to the choir, we all have masculine and feminine energy within us, and it's just degrees of how much we have. And if we're constantly battling, we're never going to get healed. The only thing that's going to heal is to see each other with love, to see each other for who we really are. That the divine energy can say it's all genders and beyond, gender fluid, but it also is very distinctly a feminine energy and a masculine energy, however we define that, and that these two energies are not separate. So I have a friend who always calls it the goddess, and I'm like, I don't want to call it the goddess because that feels separate. I want a word that encompasses everything, so it's either this or either that. And so I think we're all constantly working on how to do that. But to embrace all of us. And this is what healing is doing. We want to, the people that have, and I don't even like using the word marginalized, I would say people who have been abused and hurt and tortured. There's a lot of healing this month of recognition of that, and it's time to heal that. But the only way we can heal that is through love, not through condemning. Understanding, yes, saying that's not okay, and being really, really, really strong that this is never okay and this has got to stop. And behind that, there's love, and we have to see the love. Love heals. And what I know is that, as I said, so many of you have fathers that you have wonderful experiences with, and there's those of you who are fathers who are amazing men. You know, people in your life, if you have sons, amazing men, brothers, uncles, people that you work with, colleagues in your community, and we want to make sure that our energy around the collective is not aimed at people who are we don't judge people. We see who they really are. So love, first and foremost, is healing. But love is also personal. So my first experience of the divine when I was a kid put me on a path of, I was hungering and thirsting for it. I was hungering and thirsting because it was so beyond anything that this world could give, and so I was always looking. I was searching for it, and so meditation came to me. And the first New Thought was, well, I looked around, Zen actually was the first one, and then New Thought, and then Yogananda. But in all of these, I'm just practicing and being around teachers and people and communities that meditate, that move into, now meditation, there's different types of meditation, and we can break them all down. They're going into transcendence or seeing the divine, but it's definitely moving into a different state of consciousness. Even non-duality, which is everything is all God, you're still shifting. It's so subtle, but you're shifting into a different state. And here's the thing, after all these years, I think it really hit 2010, because by 2010 I'd had so many different spiritual experiences, some just spontaneously and some through all this work of meditation. And I could have these incredible non-dual experiences where I was just sort of awake 24/7. I've had non-dual experiences, the transcendent, light, all these different experiences, the witness, the vastness, the freedom, and I experienced joy, I experienced bliss, I experienced this harmony with all life, but where it really blocked me, or didn't block me, upset me, was after this whole long journey of this hungering and thirsting, and nothing was going to get in my way, I still wasn't experiencing love. I could experience bliss and freedom and joy and peace, but I'm like, where is the love? What's the path to getting more? I don't feel, my heart isn't overflowing. I'm in this, when you're in bliss, it's like your heart's involved. I don't know, it's just a different feeling. And that's where I started to really go, how do I deepen in actual, not just human love, not just kindness or politeness, or just doing the right thing, but I mean this divine love. And I had experienced it enough to know that is something that I have to work towards. It's not going to just come. It's not just like, oh, I'll keep loving everybody and I'm going to feel this divine love. It's so extraordinary. How do I get there? And that became this sandpaper of how do I do this? And in fact, the answer was already given to me, but I had a hard time accepting it. What I only know is devotion. Devotion to something other than yourself. And I don't mean, we do have a God self, but how do you be devotion to yourself, to the I am? I mean, I've done a lot of the I am meditation. It's great, but it's not devotion. And devotion is not about separation. In fact, devotion is the exact opposite. Devotion recognizes when you're devoted to somebody or something, it's because you see yourself in them. And you feel this magnetic energy because you're just like, like a child, a parent, an animal. You're devoted. You're devoted to taking care of them because you see them. You see who they are, and your heart is pouring out to them. And as your heart's pouring out to them, you're actually discovering love within yourself because there's nothing happening out there that's not happening inside of you. And really, Ram Dass is pointing to that as he's talking about his love of Maharaji Ji. Ji is just a honorific name, so we'll just say Maharaji. And there's many Maharajis. We won't get into that. But the Maharaji, there was a devotion, and as if you heard him, he said, well, and it's a longer reading too, I cut it down, that in loving the Maharaji is inside of him, and he was learning to become more himself by loving the Maharaji. That in Zen, they say, not two, but not one. Like it's this paradox. And so when we get into debates, well, it's this way or it's this way, it's both and it's mysterious. But if you want your heart to open, if you want, the divine love over there with Laura and Dan, if you want your heart to open on a consistent basis, to deepen and expand beyond anything you imagine, it is to become so profoundly in love with something or someone that you are willing to give everything to. That thing, whatever that is, whatever that devotion is, you give yourself to it. And you give yourself to it again and again. And if you are, and your heart isn't opening, and you are not expanding in love, then you have to do work. But it's not something we want to skip over. And I think sometimes in New Thought, I love the oneness, and we're going to talk more about the oneness next week and from the impersonal, because that's very important too. But it's love that brings us alive. It's love that marries heaven and earth. When you're in that state of bliss, when you're in that vastness, when you're in that peace, to marry it to the world only happens through love. I can witness it, I can see the being and the presence and the isness of pure spirit in, through, and as all life. But if I'm going to be in love with it, if I'm going to want to merge and be magnetically drawn to it, I'm going to have to love. And I'm going to have to love deeply and profoundly. It's the only avenue. And so, Michael Beckwith, I've talked about him a lot. I think just because, I have like 6 more talks left, so I'm going back to the things that matter to me the most. And he lives in this vastness of consciousness, and you can go there if you want to know what that feels like. Just go to a Sunday service at Agape. I would say go in person, and you have to surrender, but just surrender in that state, and you will be taken to expanded states. And that's a place where he lives a lot of his time. But interestingly, that isn't the path that he talked about. Agape's unconditional love. Because his lesson, his learning, was how to live. He talks about how he's in that vastness of place, but how to live in this world. Because he was having a hard time shifting into how do I function here? And the only way we want to function is through love. And interestingly, we have songs. We hear songs, beautiful music. It opens up our heart, right? You might hear a great story. It opens up your heart. Principles rarely do that. Love is. Okay, open up your heart. Love is. You have to create energy around it, something that animates your heart. And so the question is what do you love? And what do you like? There's all different how much your intensity of love is. But how intense is your love? Because there's another piece about love. It's hard. There has to be a total, and it can happen in stages, but it needs to happen. What you love is going to change you. You cannot love something with your whole heart, body, mind, and soul and not be changed by what you love. was listening to, or we were listening, Jack and I were listening to a Trevor Noah on Netflix, his comedy special, and he was talking about MLK, Martin Luther King, and he said, that wasn't easy. We sort of we sort of sterilize it or make it, he was so, we love him and he's for equal rights. Like, no, they had to go into these restaurants and get food thrown at him and spit on. And he went to jail 29 times, and a lot of times it was by himself, and he wasn't given a lawyer. He went through incredibly difficult times on the day-to-day things. It's not just like, we marched on a bridge and we got civil rights. It was hard. You know what would have been a lot easier? If he just stayed home. If he just stayed home and minded his own business, that would have been a lot easier life. But that's not what love was asking of him. What is love asking of you? What is love asking of you? And that can be love. However you see love, it could be a personification of love. In the Bhagavad Gita, which we're going through, they talk about the power of a personification because we can actually understand it more than if we're just going into the vast love. It can be so generic and get very abstract, but the moment you start bringing it down into form, it gets very real. What can you love with your whole heart, body, mind, and soul that's going to change you? Because it will change you. It's not going to say, remember I was talking, I don't know if you remember, I was talking about being in the cottage. We have the lighthouse, which is the transcendent, and then the cottage, which is comfort and home, and we want that safety and comfort. But a lot of times we get excessively into the safety and comfort. And we're like, this is just where I want to be. I just want to feel good because the life is so hard. But when life is so hard, it's not always comfort is the way to respond. The way to respond is to give yourself even more to the light, that light that's pulling you up, to really be very intentional and disciplined about it. That comfort isn't always the right answer to the difficult lives. I'm going to hide from it. I'm just going to be here, and we're going to talk about nice things, and we're all just going to love each other. On Friday night, Julian suggested the movie our nights together become very important, what we're going to watch together. And we watched Coach Carter. Has anyone ever heard of that movie or seen it? It's a little bit. It's a movie, a true story. It came out, I think, in the 90s with Samuel L. Jackson playing Coach Carter, and he played a coach right up here in Richmond for Richmond High School. And Richmond High School at the time had about of its graduates, only about 50% graduated, and I think it was less than 10% that went to colleges, and that was just a given. This is the world we live in. This is the culture. And it's people that they gave the statistics of how many people will go to jail, how many people will be murdered. I mean, it is not good. And so Coach Carter actually was a player on Richmond, I guess 20 years earlier before he started coaching. And he had another job, but he saw what the team was going through, and they were terrible. They only won like 4 games. They were fighting with everybody. And so he's like, okay, I'll be the coach here. But he came in and was very demanding. He made very high requirements. You have to be student athletes. You have to get at least a 2.3. You have to sit in the front row of your classes. He started demanding things of the teachers. You have to give me weekly progress reports on how they're doing. And they got mad, like, we didn't come here to give you progress reports. And the kids were like, and he'd make them doing running, just really brought all this discipline. You have to wear a suit and tie. And they're like, no. So a lot of them just quit. I'm not doing this. It's no longer comfortable or fun or easy. But then someone would come back as they would see what was happening for the kids who stayed, because there weren't a lot of options, as we've talked about. Not too many graduate, a lot of potential for jail or being murdered. There wasn't a lot of options, so those kids gave themselves to Coach Carter. And they worked so hard, and he pushed them, and some came back because I want to be part of that. It's better, this might be comfortable and familiar, but that's changing. So they went to a tournament. This is the first year him coaching after they were 4 and lost every other game. And now they went to this tournament and they won. They won the championship. And so they're doing really well, and so now they're going into, now it's getting time to the tournament for state championship, and they're in the first round, and they're still lower on the level. So they end up playing the very first seed, St. Francis, which is also a private school in the area. And they're really high. They're number one. They're rated number one in the state. And they're playing them, and you're sure, this is a movie, and of course they're going to win. They don't win. They get close. It's tie up to the very end, and then St. Francis shoots, gets 2 points, and they win. And they're in the locker room, and he says, when I started this, you were all boys, and you're men now. You've knocked my socks off in who you've become. It has nothing to do with the win-loss record. It has everything to do with who you became in this process. That's what love will do. Love wouldn't have come in and said, okay, I love you all so much. You're so important. I'm so sorry that you don't feel well. Let me just make sure you feel good about everything you're doing. And, oh, that's a good job. I'm so glad you tried shooting. No, he came up and he was hard on them because that's how love had to show up in that. I'm not saying it's always good. But that's how love had to show up for that. And it may not look that way. It might look different in your life, but love is going to show up in a way that's hard. And you're going to have a choice, just like those players have a choice. Am I going to show up? Am I going to be willing to allow love to change me? Am I willing to let go of my old identities? Because the biggest block we have is, well, that's not who I am. And who are we? All the things that I identify myself with being as a human being. Now, that's not me. I don't accept that. You're saying no to love. You're welcome to say no to love. But if you want to become love, where you're not just talking about love, but to become love, you have to go on a journey that's going to transform you as profoundly as those boys were transformed by Coach Carter. Because they listened to him, because they kept showing up even when they didn't want to, pretty much every day. What are you willing to show up to every day? And that was Trevor Noah's thing about Milton. Okay, this is every day. This isn't like, one big event. Every single day, what are you willing to give up of yourself for love's sake? Not to make other people happy, not to prove to people how kind and generous you are, but for love itself, to go straight to the source. I'm not doing it to make people happy. I'm not doing it to make people impressed with how kind and wonderful I am. I'm not doing it because I'm told. I'm doing it because I'm so in love with love, whatever that form is for you specifically. Because as Yogananda says in the Gita, is no matter who that being is for you, that being is a window to the infinite. It's a doorway that will open you up to the universe on your very specific path. But you have to know who that is or what that is, that you are willing to love it so profoundly and so deeply that you are willing to follow it. Ram Dass, the reason I picked that reading, and I've used it before, is because he says something that is so important. Oh, I don't have the reading here. It was that one sentence where the Maharaji is in charge of every minutia detail of my life. The Maharaji is in charge of every minute detail of my life. It wasn't about what he was accomplishing anymore, even in the spiritual realm. It was just about love. Everything just became about love. And from that, everything became love for Ram Dass. Because he so 100% gave himself over to this presence within him, this Maharaji, and followed to a detail what its guidance was, he became love. What is the voice that you are listening to? Just like little Portland when she heard her father saying, I'm here, I love you. What is the voice you are listening to? And how willing are you to be completely devoted to that voice over everything else in the world? He begins the reading with, I let go of all the noise of the world. You have to let everything go and really tune in and give your whole heart, body, mind, and soul, because that's what love is. That's what love asks of every one of us, to give everything that we are, everything that we are, that we think, that we do, that we feel, our entire life experience, and give it over to this presence within us that is greater than anything we can imagine, and say, yes, I'm willing to do the hard things so I can be completely naked, completely available, completely at one with pure love. Let's pray. And as we go into prayer, I invite everyone to connect with that to which you listen. It's not important to listen to my voice. The prayers are just the words creating a spaciousness, but the words are not the source. The words of this prayer are not the source of this prayer. The source of this prayer is within you now, in this very moment. The source of this prayer is speaking her light, her truth, his light, his truth into your soul. Are you listening? So if my words start to fade, let them fade, because what's most important is they are just creating the space for you to listen to that beautiful presence to which you love with your whole heart, body, mind, and soul. So we breathe. We surrender. We open. And we acknowledge, first and foremost, that which we love. We just collectively acknowledge who and or what we love with our whole heart, body, mind, and soul. And we let ourselves love. We let those walls dissolve. We let the conditions and the limits and the saying, what if, or it's got to be like this first. We let all of that go and we just love. And we love some more. And we allow ourselves to love and love yet again. And even when we might feel fear or protection or we need to keep ourselves safe, we choose to go further and say, yes, I'm going to still love. Nothing's going to stop me from loving right in this moment. I love. I love. I love this presence. I love this presence which is the source of my greatest good, of not just a little bit of good, but for the infinite good of God. This love, this source, this voice at the center of being, which is the source of the beauty, of the harmony, of the joy, of the abundance, of the creativity that is beyond our wildest imagination. It is the doorway to other realms and places of seeing, and it's the doorway to see the truth of everyone around us. So suddenly we open our eyes and all we're going to see is that it's a wonderful world. We're only going to see love because right now we are connecting with the source of that love, and it's intimate and it's personal and it's passionate. It's intimate, it's personal, and it's passionate. And we allow that passion, intimacy to call itself forth. Right now, we just listen, and what does it want to say to us right in this moment? We listen, what does this passionate love that is always calling to us, what does it want to say to us in this very moment? We just take a moment in the stillness and we listen. And when we listen, we don't need to hurry. When we're in love, we don't want to run away from our love. We don't want it to stop. We just continue to listen just a little bit longer because we are with, collectively and individually, that which we love with our whole heart, body, mind, and soul. So let's just take a little bit longer, stretch it out just a little bit longer to be with that which we love with our whole heart, body, mind, and soul. And sometimes there are no words. There's just love itself. For whatever has been given, just the experience of the presence of love, whatever guidance some people may have received, some little intuitive voice, we just give thanks, knowing that this love, this presence, is always, always giving itself to us through all our day, every minute of every day, all of the time. And what a joy to know that all we need to do is stop, listen, connect, and be love. And so it is. Amen.
I walk in God in all